Good evening and welcome on into Capital Tonight. I'm Tim Boehm. As always, we hope you and your family are doing well. We start tonight with the U.S. Senate returning to work today with the budget bill in the House passed last month at the top of their agenda. They are racing against the clock as the president hopes to sign it by the July 4th holiday. But there's another critical deadline looming this summer. Our Daniel Grimes reports from Washington.
The bill is passed.
The U.S. House passed a multi-trillion-dollar tax and spending package, and now senators are ready to carve it up before sending it back to the House. The bill includes $5 trillion in tax cuts, reforms to Medicaid and SNAP benefits, funding for the Trump administration's deportation program, defense spending, and an overhaul of student loans.
This is going to be jet fuel. The reason we call it the big, beautiful bill is because it is a tremendous pro-growth package entwined in this legislation.
Democratic leader in the House described it using a different adjective, ugly.
Hospitals will close, nursing homes will shut down, and people will literally die.
The bill will add $3.8 trillion to the deficit over the next 10 years, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. The Senate blueprint goes even further with a projected $5 trillion increase. That is a major source of concern among several Senate Republicans who want to see more cuts, including Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky.
I want the tax cuts to be permanent, but at the same time, I don't want to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion.
Congress will need to come to some sort of agreement within the next few weeks because Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the federal government could be unable to pay its bills as soon as August if something isn't passed, though he is confident they will find a consensus.
We are on the warning track and we will never hit the wall.
Another issue dividing Republican senators, proposed changes to Medicaid. Senator Susan Collins of Maine says she's concerned about potential impacts on children and seniors, while Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa caused an uproar over the weekend defending the cuts, telling attendees at a town hall, quote, "We are all going to die." In Washington, Daniel Grimes, Spectrum News.
Daniel, thank you so much. As the name implies, the so-called big, beautiful bill has a lot in it and gives us a lot to break down. One part of the bill could end up hurting tobacco farmers, a big tax increase on a product that is their lifeblood. Joining us now for more on this is Ray Starling, General Counsel for the North Carolina Chamber. Ray, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Great. Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me on.
Agriculture, big part of your background and studying that, right?
That's exactly right.
All right, so tell us what this does. Actually, first, before we get to there, people think about, textiles and tobacco. A lot of people think it's in the past,
days gone by,
it's
right?
Still a big deal, though, in North Carolina,
It's
right?
a very big deal. We have fewer people, obviously, farming or growing tobacco than 15 or 20 years ago, but still close to 1,000 farms that are tobacco involved. And by that, I mean either raising tobacco or they've got tobacco in a rotation that someone else is tending in a year when they don't have tobacco in that field or haven't had tobacco in that field for a long time. So still economically important. I like to point out that I think it's culturally important to the state. There's a big group of people that I call tobacco alumni that grew up on tobacco farms, learned our work ethic working on tobacco farms, and now we like to get together and talk about the good old days, but I kind of scratch my head when friends talk about how much fun we had in the tobacco field. I'm like, well, you must have been in a different field. That was pretty hard work.
But it was gold in the state, and it built
right.
the state.
That's exactly right,
built
big
the
tobacco. And on that note, I think another thing that gets overlooked about tobacco is tobacco was particularly difficult to grow and difficult to cure and get to the market in sort of premium shape. So our farmers, to be able to do that, really had to learn a lot about agronomic practices that made them better farmers. And so even some of them today that have left growing tobacco, they're growing vegetables, they're growing sweet potatoes, they've got other crops in rotation, and I think they're better farmers because of their experience with tobacco. And so there's a heritage there, agronomically, I think that we're still benefiting from.
And a big chunk of it now goes to China, right?
Yeah, I would say Asia generally, but definitely to China, right? There aren't any growth markets for, at least volumetrically, for tobacco inside the United States. There are some still around the world. And so we're a significant, I think, contributor to that. We're not a top three in the world. China, Brazil, and India grow the most tobacco around the world, but our contributions are significant. And a lot of the folks that really have a taste for good tobacco will tell you that American tobacco is still superior in that international market.
All right, so with that in place, What's going on with this bill? What does this do for tobacco?
Well, we've long had in the United States a policy of promoting exports, and that comes, Congress has got, of course, at its disposal a myriad of ways to promote exports. But one of them is they have a provision called duty drawback, and this has frankly been in the law in some form or another since the founding of the United States. Like literally the first establishment of an iteration of this was signed into law by none other than George Washington on July 4th in 1789. No kidding.
Wow.
And so the idea is that if you import a product and you pay a tax to import that product, we obviously, there's a lot of conversation in the world right now about taxes and tariffs. We do that as a country. We tariff product coming into the United States. That's definitely true of tobacco. But if you pay a tax on that imported tobacco or inputs that would go into a tobacco product that you subsequently export, once you export that product, you get a rebate, if you will, of those taxes that you had paid when you brought that original product in. And the idea is to promote those exports. And in this case, right back the way we started this conversation, if we are promoting our exports by giving ourselves a rebate on that tax, we're more competitive in international markets, in places where labor probably does not cost what it does here in the United States, where inputs probably don't cost what it costs here in the United States, where they perhaps don't grow product to the standard and to the care and to the quality that we do here in the United States. So this really gives our companies an advantage when they're headed back out into that global market and competing, which an advantage to them is an advantage to our farmers at the end of the day.
So what happens, do you think, to these farmers if this, stays
Well, I think
in
it's clearly, it'll literally mean a drop in demand. I mean, it's pure basic economics. If the price of our leaf going into global markets goes up 20%, which could easily happen here, then I think you'll just see contracts cut in the United States, and we'll grow and sell less tobacco. There's an add-on to that as well. It's not just about the farmers, it's about the folks that work in the manufacturing plants. Now, we know, this president talks a lot, currently President Trump talks a lot about bringing manufacturing jobs back to the United States. There's a lot of debate about that. We don't necessarily need to get into that, but the idea is that manufacturing jobs today, for the most part, are really good jobs. I think the National Association of Manufacturers says that the average U.S. manufacturing job is about $84,000 a year all in. And so it's not just the farmers, it's those folks that work in the plants that make those products. It's the folks that drive them to the port. It's the people that load them onto the boat and get them out of here. And so there's a real, an entire community that will be affected if we're not able to stay competitive and move these products.
Well, and farmers a lot of them are in trouble, not just North Carolina, but across the country. Is this enough to put some of these tobacco farmers out of business?
Well, it definitely has a bottom line impact. Well, I'm not a gloom and doom person when it comes to agriculture. Just knowing our ag community, we are very resilient. We've got, I think, the best farmers in the country, partly because of, again, that genealogy, if you will, of farming tobacco. And so there's a lot of knowledge here. Folks can shift into other things, but tobacco has been a steady and ready export for us for a long time. It's going to move into these foreign countries one way or another. Might as well be ours. But yeah, there's no doubt that there's a reason farmers are still growing tobacco in the state.
Why is this being targeted, or is it just lumped in with a lot of other things?
No, I actually think this one was drawn out specifically. If you are a domestic tobacco company, you can't, and you're only selling product domestically, you're only selling product into the United States, you don't get to take advantage of this, because the whole idea of this was to promote exports. And so I think there's some competition among companies where this has come up, and they're saying, if I'm not entitled to get that break, I don't want you to get it either. And I think that's unfortunate. I understand business competition, but at the end of the day, this policy would hurt tobacco farmers and would, frankly, I believe, hurt the entire industry overall. And so I think that's kind of where it's coming from. But I think our lawmakers will see past that, and hopefully it comes out in the Senate version and stays out in the conference version.
Okay, we'll see what happens, particularly North Carolina folks. Good to see you.
Thanks
Thank you for coming in and explaining. Time for our first break.
Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. Let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage, and click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV to learn more about the candidates, where they stand on the issues, and more. We'll see you then.